What if Allah doesn't want you to move on? You prayed to forget, you tried to move on, you thought it was over, but despite everything, he or she is still there, in your heart, in your thoughts. Is it just an attachment, or is it a sign? What if there were 5 silent signs that Allah doesn't want you to sever this connection? What you're about to hear might change the way you see this person, and how you've been feeling all this time. 1. When your heart refuses to let go. You thought you'd moved on. You got up every day trying to convince yourself it was over. You repeated phrases you didn't feel. You drowned yourself in distractions, responsibilities, silences. But despite everything, he or she is still there. Not loudly, not visibly, but discreetly, like a light that never completely goes out. Why? Why does this person still live in the recesses of your heart even when you no longer want to think about them? You may have thought to yourself, this is obsession, a weakness, an emotional dependence. But what tells you it's not something else? What tells you that what you feel isn't a sign, but a reminder? There are connections that the soul recognizes before the mind understands. You can try to rationalize, to explain, to analyze. But what you feel doesn't come from your mind. It comes from deeper, from a place within you that doesn't obey the laws of this world. And sometimes, what you think is an attachment is actually an invisible cord that your heart continues to hold. Because Allah hasn't asked you to let go yet. You know, there are prayers you don't even put into words anymore. Names that come back to you while you're doing something else. A face that crosses your mind while you're in the middle of worship. An inexplicable feeling that this person is still connected to your path, when everything seems to indicate the opposite. What if it wasn't you who was holding on to this connection, but Allah who refused to sever it? There are trials we overcome because they were only there to test us. But there are also connections we hold on to, not like poison, but like a seed. A seed that will only germinate when the time is right. Perhaps this connection isn't a distraction but a direction. Maybe he was left with you for a reason that only you can't yet see. Maybe this person wasn't put in your path to get out like the others. And you feel it. In the calm, in the doubt, in that strange sensation that you're not free to forget. Not yet. Don't minimize what you're feeling just because it doesn't fit into the boxes of the past or logic. Because sometimes, it's the soul that remembers, when everything else has chosen to forget. And if your heart refuses to let go, maybe it's not because it's weak. Maybe it's because it was designed to hold on a little longer. 2. The story of a love that even the years haven't erased. She never spoke his name, not to her friends, not to her parents, not even to herself in her thoughts. She loved him, but quietly. She loved him with that sacred modesty that only those who place their trust in Allah can understand. That was a long time ago now. She had met his gaze in a simple moment. Nothing extraordinary, nothing dramatic. Just that kind of moment the heart captures unintentionally. And since then, something inside her had never been the same. The years passed. The season changed. The proposal came. Some beautiful, sincere, honorable. She listened. She prayed. She even tried to open her heart. But there was always that inner silence. Not a rejection, but an absence of resonance. As if everything they offered her rang true, but not true. She had never seen him again. She had never dared to look for him. She had placed this feeling in the hands of Allah, like a silent offering, expecting nothing in return. And then one day, while she was reciting prayers of remembrance, His name came, softly, like a warm breeze, on a cold night, not with pain, not with loss, but with that strange peace one feels when one draws closer to what is true, even if it isn't there yet. She froze. She could have ignored this moment, moved on. But her soul understood before she even thought. This connection was not a wound to be healed. It was not an illusion. It was a sacred vestige. A trace that no effort, no distraction, no prayer of forgetting could erase. It was not an obsession. It was something older, more intimate, moreover, divinely placed. She understood that some feelings are not there to be fought. They are there to be held in silence, to be entrusted to Allah, again and again, without delay, without demand. She understood that in a world that encourages us to quickly forget, to quickly turn the page, some things must instead be treasured, even if they sometimes hurt. Because to keep is sometimes to demonstrate faith. And since that day, she hasn't forgotten him. But she didn't wait for him either. She simply continued her life, with that part of herself that she no longer seeks to erase. She prays, she lives, she moves forward. And in each sincere invocation, there is still a distant echo of him. Not because she is weak, but because she understood that certain presences never leave the heart, because they have never been foreign to it. 3. Some connections are like the roots of a tree. There are connections you see, and others you feel without being able to name them. You see, some relationships are like leaves. They fall at the slightest breeze. They are beautiful, colorful, present for a time. Then they disappear, carried by the winds of fate. And you hardly remember them anymore. But others are like roots. You don't see them. You don't hear them. They don't flaunt themselves. They don't boast. But without them, everything collapses. There are ties in your heart that no one sees, not even you, sometimes. They are buried beneath the soil of your efforts, beneath the years, beneath the "I've turned the page." And yet, they still hold, solid, silent, inexplicably alive. When Allah decides to plant a bond deep within you, it's never without wisdom. It's not a coincidence. It's not an emotional error. It's not a weakness you must fight at all costs. It's a root. And a root, you can't pull it out without uprooting the entire tree. You may have tried to forget, to cut off all contact, to rebuild your life elsewhere with others. But there are presences that don't disappear with distance, nor with time. They live elsewhere, at a level that only the silence of the soul can reach. Because this bond wasn't formed solely in this world. It wasn't woven with glances or words. It was formed, perhaps, long before you realized it. And when a bond is rooted in the invisible, no human strategy can dissolve it. That's why you still feel that inner vibration when you think of that person. It's not pain, it's persistence. It's not an obsession. It's a memory of the heart. The kind of memory that even forgetting can't erase. Some connections can't be explained, because they're not there to be understood. They're there to remind you that your heart is not a place of passage. It's a sacred garden, and some names are planted in its soil, are not to be picked up, but to grow, wisely, at the time decided by the one who sees what you still don't know. So perhaps what you feel isn't a weakness to be fought, but a root that Allah refuses to let you pull out. Not yet. 4. What if it wasn't an attachment, but a mission? You silently say, in the depths of your night, I can't forget him. But what if it wasn't a weakness? What if it wasn't this invisible chain you impose on yourself, but rather a reminder sent to you by Allah? You ask yourself again and again, sometimes even in despair, why him? Why her? Why now, when everything seemed over? What if this over was only a veil, an illusion placed over your eyes, so that you wouldn't see what was brewing further down the line? What if Allah, in His infinite wisdom, kept you connected to this person, not to make you suffer, but because there was still a mission to be accomplished, a mission that only you can understand, feel, and carry out? You sometimes think about all those unhealed wounds, those unspoken words, those silences that weigh like mountains. What if this connection, so seemingly fragile, was the key to a greater, deeper process? A path of healing, forgiveness, or light to be born, together or even through this connection, in a way you haven't yet grasped. When this name keeps coming up in your prayers, it may not be because you're a slave to the past, but because you're being gently guided toward a future your heart senses, but your mind refuses to accept. Perhaps this presence in your prayer is a call for patience, a call for wisdom, a call for faith. So before fighting against this connection you deem toxic or useless, ask yourself this question: what if this connection were a divine sign? A light hidden in the shadows, showing you that your story with this person isn't over, but only at a turning point. A turning point that only time will reveal. 5. When Allah speaks to you through what you feel this pain, don't you? Not a raw pain, not a violent heartbreak. It's a gentle, almost silent pain, which settles when you think of him, of her. It doesn't come to break you. It comes to remind you. You laugh, you move forward, you pray, you build your life. But this presence remains, discreet, nestled deep in your heart, like a fragile flame that you cannot extinguish. You don't tell anyone about it, not because you want to hide it, but because no one could understand. No one, except Him. Allah knows. He knows what your heart whispers in the privacy of your nights. He knows what your lips never utter. And sometimes, it is He who, in His infinite wisdom, fuels this memory. Not to cling to what's holding you back, but to prepare yourself, so that when the perfect moment, the true moment, comes, your heart will be ready. Ready to welcome what must come. Ready to receive the peace you've been seeking for so long. This emotional silence, this melancholy within you, may be the language Allah uses to speak to you. A language only sensitive hearts can hear. What if hidden within this quiet pain is an answer you haven't yet been able to hear? An answer found not in words, but in patience, in faith, in surrender to the one who knows the path of your soul better than you. If your heart has responded to even one of these signs, then it's no coincidence that you came across this video. Don't let this guidance fade after a few minutes. Take a moment. Be silent. Ask yourself a real question. What if this connection was part of your destiny, not a mistake? If this message spoke to you, then share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Write in the comments what your heart felt. You have no idea how many souls you can touch simply by speaking sincerely. And if you want even more spiritual answers about love, divine signs, and decisions of the heart, subscribe now. This is just the beginning of a journey we'll take together.